this video for Computer Science 9618, we're going to take a look at some more tips and tricks that you can use on your Paper 4 exam. Hopefully these will be helpful to you. If you haven't checked out the original tips and tricks for Paper 4, make sure you check out that video as well, because that will cover some things that this video does not cover. So converting string to integers. There may come a time during the exam on Paper 4 where you have a string that consists of both letters and numbers. And you may be saying, numbers? I thought that was just integers. Remember, strings are any alphanumeric characters. Alpha referring to the alphabet or special character symbols, numeric referring to digits. So you may have to isolate those numbers, those digits, and or perform math on those numbers. They may ask you to do something with those, so we need to be ready to handle that. But how do we take these characters and convert them to digits? For example, if I have the character 1, how do I convert that to an integer of 1? Well, there are multiple paths you can take from string to integer, and we're going to cover those. Now, one way to handle this is to use the convert class and its methods. Convert dot to int32, putting a string in parentheses, that will take a string and it will convert it to an integer for you. Now, it will only convert that string you provide if it is a digit, such as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. It can also convert multiple digits at a time as well. For example, if I have 1, 2, 3, those are 3 digits, so that's fine. It will convert it from a string 123 to an integer of 123. Now, if there is a non-digit provided, such as a letter or other character, it will try to convert that letter, it will fail, and it will crash. So let's take a look at a scenario where we can see this in action. A student ID consists of the student's last name and is followed by a 3-digit number. To get a new ID, a program is to be written that will extract each digit from the end of the ID and multiply it by 5. These products are added together to get the sum, which will now replace the original 3 digits that follow the last name in the ID. The ID will be the student's last name followed by the new sum. The new sum portion can be of any length. Take input a student ID as a string and output the new ID. Let's swing over to VB.net so we can see the convert dot to int32 method in action. You can see I've already set up some variables, current letter to hold the current letter. If it's a letter, I need to add that on to the new ID. If it's a digit, I need to convert it and perform math on it. And that's what sum does, is hold the sum of all 3 products that we do. Digit, that is to hold the value. If it is, I need to convert it to an integer, and that's going to hold it as a numerical value so I can perform math on it. ID, which is the original ID, and new ID, which we are going to build. I'm going to use a for loop here. So I'm going to do for I equals 1, 2, ID.length. The reason I'm starting at 1 is because I'm going to use mid. Can you use substring? Absolutely. But my current letter is going to be mid. I'm working with ID. I want to start at position I want 1 character. That's how mid works. The next thing I need to do is I need to check to see if that current letter is an actual letter. So I'm going to do if char.isLetter, if what's a letter? The current letter I'm on. If it is, then I'm going to do new ID plus equals current letter. Because if it's not a number and it is a letter, then I know it's part of their last name. Now, if that's not the case, then what I need to do is I need to convert that character string, I need to convert it to an actual integer. So I do digit equals, I'm going to use convert dot to int32, and what string am I working with? The current letter. That will take the current letter, it'll convert it to an actual integer. Now I can do sum plus equals digit times 5. That will loop through the whole string. It will output everything we need. Now, when I do new ID equals, or I'm going to do new ID plus equals, if I do sum, my program will crash. It doesn't know how to take a number and add a string to it. It's not going to read it as string concatenation. It's going to read it as an actual math operation. I need to change sum to a string. Sum to string. That's all I'm going to do. Don't put a 0 in there. That's a typo on my end. There we go. sum.toString. Now I'm going to output the new ID. We're going to use herb123 as our test data. It should output herb and then the sum 30. 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 plus 5 is 15. Then we have to do 3 times 5, which is also 15. 15 plus 15 is 30. So we run our program, and that is what we should see. So I'm going to do herb123. It outputs herb30 is working like it's supposed to. What we need to do now is take a look at an alternative of how to do this a different way without using the convert method. So I said the convert method is actually the converting class. The toInt32 is a method. Now an alternative to the convert toInt32 method is the parse method of the integer class. I can use integer.parse, take my string inside there, and it will convert that to an integer as well. So let's take a look at our previous problem and the updated code where integer.parse has been used instead of the convert class. Now we're going to have the same code. We're just going to get rid of this line of code right here. So this uses the convert class, the toInt32 method, but we can also use the parse method of the integer class. Digit equals integer.parse. And what that will do is it will take a string and it's going to convert it. So what am I trying to convert? The current letter. If I use the same test data, it should come out to ERB30 again, or herb30. So I'm going to do herb123, and we see we get the same exact output, and it does the same thing that the convert class does. What if we are given a string and we have no idea where the numbers are? What if we are reading a file and the next line is a set of numbers or a set of letters and we just don't know what it's going to be? And that was actually on a past paper 4 exam. We opened the file and the next line was either going to be a manager's bonus or it was going to be a job title. So we had to try to parse it and then do something accordingly. If it was a manager's bonus, we had to add on the bonus. If it was a job title, we had to add the job title. Now, when you don't know, there is a method you can use that will work every single time. You can also use this method when you do know. And I prefer this method over the parse method. We'll talk about why in a minute. And that's the integer.tryParse method. It takes a string, then a variable where you're going to store that conversion into. So let's update our original code using tryparse so we can see how it works. When we use the tryparse method, we can restructure our code just a little bit and get the same result. We're going to use an if statement. If integer.tryparse. Why am I using if integer.tryparse? Tryparse will return either a true value or a false value. Here's how. Inside the parentheses, what are we trying to parse to an integer? What are we trying to convert? Current letter. If it can do that, and it returns true, where do I want that stored? I want that stored in digit. So if this returns true, I know it's a number. When I have a number, I can do digit times 5 and tack that onto my sum. If this returns false, then I know I'm not on a number. I know I'm on a letter. If this returns false, the program will not crash. It just won't do the sum plus equals digit. But I need to tack on that current letter. Just like that, we can get the same output if we use the same set of test data, which I'm going to do. herb123 should come out to herb30. And it does. The difference between tryparse and parse is this. Tryparse returns a true or false value and will prevent your program from crashing. If this returns true, I can do some math with it. If it doesn't, I can handle an else statement to handle whatever happens if this returns false. With parse, whatever I have in parentheses, if it's a letter and tries to parse it or convert it to an integer, it's going to crash. Tryparse will not crash on you. It will simply return a true false value, and we can handle that with an if-else statement. Let's talk about handling real numbers. Anytime you're dealing with real numbers in your program, which are numbers with a fractional part, you're going to have three data types that are pretty common. You could use single, double, you can also use decimal. But which one do we use? Well, we need to know the difference between these three data types. Single data types are 32 bits, and this can handle up to about 7 digits that are precise. It's all about range versus precision. Rounding errors can occur after the 7th digit. It's great on saving memory, but the price you're going to pay is it's less precise. Microsoft describes it as an approximation of a real number. What about double? It takes up twice the amount of memory, 64 bits, but can handle approximately 15 digits that are precise. Now somebody calculated it out, and it actually came out to 15.9545898 digits, which is less than 16. Some people say 15, some people say 16. It all depends on where you view this 15.95 long decimal. So it takes double the space of single, but it is more precise. Microsoft describes it as being able to store a close approximation of a real number. Then we have decimal. These are the largest, 128 bits, and in VB.NET it can store up to 29 digits accurately. This is to be used when monetary values, meaning you're dealing with money, are being done, as there will be no rounding errors. It is the largest, but also it is the slowest. With today's computer speeds and the small programs we are writing, you may not actually see a difference at all. So which one do I actually use though on paper 4? You can use whichever one you want. I would at least use double. I always tell my students, always just use decimal. But what if Cambridge shows single in the mark scheme and I use something else? What if I use double or decimal? You're going to receive credit for your answer. If you have a working program that satisfies the condition of the question or scenario, you will receive marks on that question. Let's talk about something that a lot of people don't even talk about, which is water. When you walk into the test, you are allowed a water bottle, like a bottle of water, as long as you don't have a label on the water bottle. It's got to be see-through. You can't have a label, so make sure to take the label off. On any exam, regardless whether it's a Cambridge exam or not, any students will experience stress. These are high-stress situations. Drinking water, though, can help lower your cortisol levels. When you're feeling stressed, it interferes with your ability to think clearly and can cloud your judgment. Paper 4 is a problem-solving test. We can't afford to have our ability to think hindered at all. Being hydrated throughout the day will allow your body to handle the cortisol levels more effectively, bringing them down. So start drinking water now throughout the day. You don't have to wait until exam day to start drinking that water. It will bring your cortisol levels down, allowing you to feel less stressed. And when your cortisol levels come down, you're able to think clearly and your judgment doesn't become clouded. How much the water impacts the cortisol, though, varies from person to person. So it is important to make note of that. Now, something that everybody talks about is sleeping versus cramming for a test. And a lot of people say, get a good night's sleep. But is that backed by science? Is there a reason for it? Well, many of you have started preparing a while ago. Cramming is not effective. Everybody says that, but is that true? Yes, it is. And there's research that proves that. Getting a good night's sleep is involved in memory. What you learn throughout the day becomes part of your long-term memory when you actually go to sleep, allowing recall to be much easier. Now, unfortunately, sleeping while listening to a video or listening to audio, that doesn't do the same thing, unfortunately. Now, when you get a good night's sleep, it also brings down those cortisol levels. It reduces stress. Now, a study done by the journal Nature found that students who study regularly versus students who cram perform much better on assessments. They also found that memory retention was positively impacted. Do not wait until the night before the exam to try to get a good night's sleep. You want your sleep schedule takes a few days to take effect. So if you're staying up all night 2 days before the test, and you've been staying up real late and you try to get a good night's sleep before the exam, it's going to be very, very, very difficult to do. But a lot of you started preparing a while ago. We had questions come in starting a couple months ago. And then the last bit of advice and the last tips I have for you, there are some things that you need. This will be the last video before the next exam. There will be several more videos coming up for the spring exam. So this isn't the last video of the channel, but is the last video before the next paper 4 exam. Now make sure you have access to your evidence document and the source files. These are the TXT files. There are no binary files assessed on the exam. These text files, the evidence document, they're to be provided to you before the start of the test. They should not be given to you after the test begins. You should already have access to them before you officially start the test. Monitor your battery level. If you're on a desktop, you got nothing to worry about. But if you're on a laptop, monitor your battery level. Do not wait until it becomes critically low to ask for a charger. Something you may want to do is go ahead and ask your test proctor or your Cambridge coordinator, are they going to provide chargers for the paper 4 exam if you're on a laptop? Ask them, are there going to be outlets in the room that we can use? Because you should be given that. Now, one way to almost avoid that, make sure your laptop is fully charged. But if you do need a charger, you should be provided with one or an opportunity to plug it in. Have something to write with. You're allowed to write, underline, and highlight in your test booklet. Don't go too crazy though. You don't want to spend all this time underlining, drawing diagrams, and writing things out when none of that is going to be graded. A good example, just underline some important information. We've seen some past paper 4 exams, and we've done several of those on this channel, and I appreciate you guys being supportive and checking those out. But when we saw the pseudocode where we had to fill in the blanks, that would be a good time to actually fill in the blanks with your writing utensil. That way you're not trying to remember what it was or having to stop and go back. Save your evidence document regularly. You are responsible for doing this. At regular intervals, you want to be saving. Just a simple Control-S will save your document. You don't want to find out that your computer crashes with 30 minutes left to go and you're unable to recover the document. There's no way you're going to be able to do 2.5 hours of work in 30 minutes. Now, the next tip I have for you is this isn't a test. It's not, you may be saying, what do you mean it's not a test? It's a chance for you to show Cambridge that you have mastered the content and you're showing them you know your stuff. And a lot of you have been studying way in advance. You are ready for this test. You know more and you are prepared more than you think you are. Focus on what you have achieved. It's been a long road, and for your teachers too, it's been a long road, and it's now time to reap those rewards. I would say good luck on your paper 4 exam, but you're ready. You're ready to go in and master that content and get that high level score that you're looking for on the paper 4 exam. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, please take a moment to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to help the channel grow. And we'll see you guys in the next programming video.